Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Firefly. Episode 12 is called The Message, so full spoilers for the episode as always. Also, thank you to the sponsor of these Firefly reviews, Keith Beard, one of our patrons. Thanks to him. So, yeah, this was the second of 3 episodes that never aired. Popped up later, or at least maybe they aired later, like, you know, during the summer.
In the middle of the night at some point.
But like these were 3 episodes that didn't air with the rest of the season, and for most people didn't see them until the DVD came out. The last one being, of course, Trash that we did last time. And then we have This Is The Message. Next one's going to be Heart of Gold. And what's funny is I always remembered these 3 being kind of the weakest sort of portion of the season. Out of the episodes that were there, because the last episode we have, which did air, because obviously aired out of order because they're pricks, is very good. But what I will say is, actually, having watched Trash again and then watching this one again, is that, well, I still think they're the weakest part of the season in general, because, you know, they're a bit, you know, less great.
Meandering, maybe?
They hold up better than I thought.
Yeah, they're not bad episodes by any means. I think they're definitely weaker. I think they feel a little meandering at this stage of the season. Like, we're just kind of going around doing some just random things right now.
Well, you get the feeling that they were about to hit their innocence and passion, to compare to season 2 of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, they're about to hit that part of the season where that big plot sort of end game starts to come in.
Yeah.
For the rest of the show. So, which fine. I'll say this right now: not a single episode in this season ever sinks to the lows of Buffy season 2, and I love Buffy season 2. But Buffy season 2 has a couple of really low episodes.
It does. Do you know what this feels like? It's like, it feels like they were expecting to get the 22.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, well, we don't want to start doing the big stuff till this episode. So we kind of just have to kill time for a few episodes.
Yeah, but even this episode has a couple of things in it that are kind of iconic to Firefly fans, and I kind of sometimes I forget like where some of the bits come from. But yeah, this is the one with Jane's hat. And this is, you know, like tons of fan art and tons of even clothes have been sold based on just a small moment in this episode.
Yep, it is pretty iconic.
Yeah. So we'll start. I got my notes. So we're at like a space station, and it's got like a market, but there's like there's a post office, which is the main thing they go to. But there's like a hustler, kind of like, you know, carny guy, be like, step inside for all the greatest horrors you've ever seen. You know, it's doing this kind of old timey thing. Because
actual alien life.
Firefly has done this thing, obviously, where it's had the clash of the new science fiction stuff with the old timey kind of stuff from the Western days. It has one of the great ironic cuts though that Whedon often employs here, where it cuts into the actual show, this like actual thing that you can go in and see, and it's Simon and Kaylee, and they're looking at this thing, and Simon just goes, "It's a cow." And she's like, "What do you mean it's a cow?" It's like, "It's upside down." And she sort of goes, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, cow fetus, to be fair.
Cow fetus, yes. But he just recognised what it is, and he's like, "Well, I'm out of living credits," and you know, of course, the point of this scene is that they start flirting, and she starts asking, you know, what he likes about her and things like that, and he's doing a good job for a while, where he's saying that she's got great eyes and about how she's really good with engines. She's kind of a genius when it comes to that stuff, and she always says what she means and says her mind, and all these things he appreciates. And then I think everyone can sort of feel the car crash happening as he says, and you know, every other woman on the ship's either married or related to me, so
kind of only leaves you, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you can see the car crash in slow motion. You can basically see the moment where he went over the nail or whatever, and it's done the tire in, and he's starting to skid uncontrollably, and he's about to flip into a fiery death. And
that is a really extreme scenario for a nail.
And the fiery death, is the look Kaylee gives him. After
that is pretty fiery.
Yeah, like, hey, that's what it feels like. In walks Zoe and Wash, and I did note down Wash's line when he comes in here, because it made me, I'd forgotten about this line because it's been a while since I've seen this episode, and it made me laugh out loud proper. He walks in and goes, "Oh my god, it's grotesque." Oh, and there's something in a tank.
It's a very classic Wash line.
It's a very Wash line. I love it. And then we come outside an hours with Mal. They're talking about trying to fence the laser gun from last episode, and how, hey, well, if you're having trouble getting it on the black market, like, you know, a lot of the clientele I run around with, like, you know, there are a lot of rich people, maybe I could put in a word. And he's like, no, you're not part of this world, don't sully yourself. And she's like, you're always making fun of my world, though. You're always saying my profession is unjust. And he's getting, so even they're having kind of a, it's not quite as touching perhaps as Kaylee and Simon almost were, but they're kind of flirting a little bit. It's kind of a little bit like, hey, you always poke fun of what I do. And he's like, but I don't want to, you know, get you in trouble, kind of thing. You know, it's you know, it's just there a little bit, but it's there. So they're going to the post and getting stuff that's been sent to them, and
that's what you usually do there.
Yeah, there's a variety of things. So, you know, Jane gets a package. I just noted down Jane's reading skills, because he's struggling a bit.
What was the word he stumbles on? It's a really like easy word, and it was like just like 2 sentences in.
Oh, I can't remember what he
I
stumbled
don't know
on.
what it was, but he says it, and then he's like, "Nope, that's not right," and then he tries it again to say it properly. I'm like, "Wow, okay."
Yeah, there's also a little bit even before he gets his package where he was picking up like a part for the ship or something like that that Mal sent him for. And he kind of tries to like not give him all the change back. He hands him a few coins, and then Mal just kind of looks at him. And he's like, "Oh, here you go." There's the rest of it, and slaps some more in his hand. But he gets this hat, this orange and yellow wool hat that his mother's made for him, and he puts it on.
Terrible.
He puts it on and says, "Kinda cunning, don't you think?" And that's not the best line of the moment. The best line of the scene,
I know,
is then Wash. Wash comes in, 2 scenes in a row. Wash steals the scenes. Wash comes in and says, "Man walks down the street in that hat, and you know he's not afraid of anything."
And Jane's just like, "Damn right."
Oh dear. Yeah, so this episode does have one of the funniest moments of the show, because that line was one of them.
It's up there, yeah.
I'm putting that in contention.
Of course you are.
So yeah, so they get the big package that Zoe and Mal get, and they're like, "I didn't order it. Did you order it?" No, and it's a body. It's a dead body. We go to the title credits, title music. Come back to a flashback during the war, and it's this guy who I mentioned last episode that was on both Buffy and Angel. He played, I can't remember his name, but he was in Conversations with Dead People in season 7 of Buffy. He was this new vampire who Buffy kind of spoke to for a little bit. And then in Angel,
you don't remember his name.
Sorry?
You said you don't remember his name.
I know.
That's unacceptable from you.
Look, I know a lot about Buffy. I don't remember every single main character's name.
Well, you should do better.
Then he was in Angel. He was the scientist who worked with Fred in season 5 of Angel. So
That's trying to tell me you don't know his name either.
Well, I don't remember his name either. What did you want from me? He had a more of a recurring part in Angel, though. He was kind of there for at least a few episodes. But so it's interesting that he kind of popped up in both really back to back. In fact, what's weird about this is that I'm pretty sure he was on Firefly the first of the 3. This would have been first, given what seasons he was on of those. So that's really, I don't know, neat trivia, I guess. But he's in this flashback. He stops fighting. Do you know, I have to say, I like how the war flashbacks. We've only had a few of them. You know, most of them at the start of the show. I kind of like how they look. Like they do a good job in this show, I think, of doing a lot with little. Because, you know, obviously whenever you get flashbacks like in a TV show, they have to kind of like just have one little area because they have to hide the fact that
hide in the bunker.
Yeah, they have no money. I think I like the overall aesthetic they give these and the filter they put on them compared to what a lot of modern flashbacks use. Looking at you, Arrow.
Do you know what? I don't even hate the Arrow style. You know, the individual style. The Batwoman ones from the first episode, they were way worse. They had like this janky, horrifically bright thing, and it's just terrible. Here, I agree with what you're saying. I felt the budget. Don't get me wrong. I felt how they were just confined to this room. Especially it's when Mal comes in from outside. He just bursts in. I'm like, yeah, that felt awkward.
Oh, don't worry, I'm going to mention that because that's also another funny joke.
It is, but it felt particularly awkward for the budget.
Yeah, I mean this is where the episode has a hard task, because this character of Tracy, who we find out his name is, he, like, we have to kind of care about him, and we also have to go through a bit of a journey with him. And I don't know if one episode was enough to kind of do it, but we find out that he's kind of a shit soldier. He almost gets killed because he's eating his beans, and Zoe, like, sneaks up behind the Alliance soldier and slits his throat, and kind of like berates him a little bit and says, "Hey, next time I'm just going to watch. I'm not going to help you."
And then eat your beans.
And she gives him this whole speech about, because he says, "Oh, I didn't know you were there." It's like, well, that's kind of the point. It's stealth. That's kind of like one of the big things about being a soldier. And then the line she says is, the first rule or whatever. I remember how she phrased it, but she says that the first rule that of battle, little one. Oh, I actually noted this down. Good. The first rule of battle, little one: never let anyone know where you are. And then immediately, as soon as she says that, Mal backs into the sort of this building they're in, firing his gun and yelling, "I'm here, you sons of bitches! I'm right here! Come and get it! I'm here!" He says, "I'm here," like 3 times.
Yep.
That's maybe my least favourite scene of the whole episode, just because I think it goes on a bit too long. I don't really care about Tracy. But that joke makes the whole thing worth it. I love Mal coming in, yelling, "I'm here," after she says that.
That is pretty funny.
Oh, so good. So that's basically it. Outside of like Mal giving a bit of a pep talk, and like they get kind of attacked at the end. There's like a seeker comes in, and they're ducking and diving.
The lieutenant's cracked, and they're like, and Mal just makes up an order from the lieutenant, and is like, "Hey, you all heard him say that, right?" And they're like, "Yep, sure, why not?"
Yeah. So we see kind of they kind of carried them through the war, basically, is the gist we get of this. And we sort of, I guess, reiterated with their dialogue and stuff. This is obviously one of the earlier meetings they had, because they seem to like, because when they're talking about the stories later, it sounds like they like him a bit more than they do in this scene. So this was kind of the early stages.
To be fair, I didn't ever get the impression here that they don't like him. It more just that they were maybe not getting attached because they didn't expect him to survive very long because he wasn't that great.
That's fair. And then they get out the recording after they get back to the ship. There's a little bit actually before they get there that I really actually like, that it just kind of sells you upon the camaraderie, because ultimately what this episode is about, it's kind of what the whole show's about in a lot of ways, is that the whole show is about Mal losing this fight and not knowing who he is and not knowing what he lives for afterwards. And this character of Tracy is basically an example of someone who gets out of the war, doesn't know who he is, kind of mirrors Mal's story, and just kind of goes to shit. The ultimate story is just a complete tragedy. He doesn't, and a lot of it's his own fault, but that's kind of part of the sadness of it, is that he was just kind of left a mess, made a lot of the wrong choices, and ultimately didn't go anywhere, right? And led to this, this shitty ending for him. And it's kind of this warning sort of parable of what Mal could be. I think it's very notable that we end this episode on a shot of Mal. Like, the final shot of this episode is Mal at a funeral, kind of looking somber.
And spoilers.
It's always spoilers for the whole episode. Shut up. Anyway, so but a little touch that I really liked is that Zoe and Mal pick up the coffin, the crate that the coffin's in, and Book naturally sort of leans in to sort of help and sort of grab the middle, and Zoe kind of shakes her head at him and says, "No, we got it." And it's this thing where they have to do it themselves. So just a little touch.
Yeah.
And again, it makes sense. It makes sense from Book wanting to help as well. So for everyone's character's motivation in the moment makes sense, and
it does, yeah.
A little beat. They get back to the ship. There's a recording that we hear where he sort of describes, "Hey, I'm expecting to die, basically, and you carried me through a war, but I need you to carry me just one little bit further if you can." And
just take me home and bury with there.
Yeah, and he starts a little saying they used to have in the war that we don't get to hear the end of until later. If you can't run, crawl. If you can't crawl, and he's like, you know the rest, and it comes up later. But and I do like how this scene is presented a lot, because I love that at the end of this scene, Wash just starts walking away, and Mal's like, "Hey, where you going?" And he's like, "Hey, that he's home, whatever the name was. His home's just like 2 days away. We'll barely lose time by going there." And Mal's like, "Yeah, okay." Wash was already going to take care of it. He's like, "Yeah, we're just going to do this." Yeah. And then immediately, Mal turns to Anara and says, "Hey, this probably changes your schedule for your jobs that you've lined up. And she's like, it's fine. Like, the mood and the way everyone reacts to it just feels like, if anything, the weird thing about the episode is that until the bad guys kind of like come in pursuit, which is, you know, another little chunk into it, there's like almost no conflict. There's almost nothing to drive anything.
Even Jane's kind of being not, well, I won't say nice. That's not the right word, but he's not being.
Not being Jane.
Aggressive.
Yeah, he's been civil. There's a scene coming up. I'll just talk about it now, where he's with Book and he's lifting weights and he sits up and him and Book have this conversation where where Jane kind of sounds the most normal and like civilized he's ever sounded. Where he's talking about, you know, whenever I see a body, you know, I'll lift weights or I'll do something to deal with it. They're basically talking about how people react differently and deal with, you know, grief or death differently, and. Actually, you know, and he says, he goes a little bit far at one point where he says, oh, and if there's a girl around, maybe I'll have sex, basically. And then he's like, oh, wait, but I don't mean that I get off in dead boys or anything like that. Again, I'm kind of paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact, you know, dialect he was using, but and Book's like, no, I get it. Like, you know, you want to feel alive. You know, you want to like have an adventure to feel living, to remind yourself that you are alive. And
it makes sense. Even at the start of this scene, Book's like, you know, doing some like last rites for the body, and Jane, you know, Jane doesn't make a big deal about it. He's like, I mean, yeah, he's dead, you know, do your god stuff.
Have I even apologized and says, am I being too loud?
Yeah.
Which is not something I would assume Jane would ever do, is say, hey, am I being too loud?
And he invites Book, hey, do you want to have a turn and I'll, you know, watch over, you know, and it's a genuine offer, is, hey, you know, because this is how he processes it. It's like, hey, do you maybe want to process it this way as well?
And it maybe makes sense just in the context of Jane's story, where just last episode, like, Simon confronted him and, you know, he was kind of found out for what he'd done on Ariel, which we knew he was trying to redeem for anyway and felt guilty about. So it maybe makes sense just in the overall arc of Jane at this point that, sure, it's being kind of propelled a little bit and heightened because of the dead body and because of the somber mood, but it makes sense in the grand scheme of things too. So where am I here? Yeah, so Kaylee's like listening to the recorder. We do have a scene with the bad guys who are corrupt cops, basically. Go to the post office and like force the guy to like sort of give over, you know, where he gave the crate to. You know, I think the actor here is okay. I think this role's a little underwritten though. It's just kind of generic, intimidating.
There's nothing to it, is it? You
know, I do like the casual threat at the end of lighting them on fire, but other than that, like the rest of it's just kind of, you know, ho hum.
It's particularly forgettable, I think, in this episode.
I think this show's done really well with villains, actually. So I think it's particularly forgettable just the context of comparing it to the other ones we've had.
Oh, it is. But even in this episode, you know, we're talking about this now, and I kind of forgot that this scene happened. You know, this first one that we set up the villain, rather than they're just chasing us later. There is an introduction that my mind just went, I didn't need to know that.
Yeah, I mean, he basically. I think the only reason why I remember this like face is actually because the actor. I think he was on like season 1 of Desperate Housewives or something like that. Like he popped up again, in a more prominent role somewhere.
It stands to reason.
That said, he's the sort of guy that I'm pretty sure has played like a cop or a detective in like 50 TV shows over the last 10 years.
Yeah, he's got one of those faces.
Yeah. So. I'm just them. Kaylee's listening to the recording, like just in her little, you know, she's got like a hammock in the engine room, and she's just kind of listening to this over and over. Simon's going to talk to her, but he feels awkward, and he kind of backs off. Book and Jane have their scene here. Malzo and Anara are sitting in the mess hall. They are laughing and telling stories about him. You know, Anara's listening and sort of helping them with their grief. So again, you know, they're in relationships that have clearly evolved. You know, Mal and Anara have come a little bit, away because she did help with the job last time. I actually really like this continuity in terms of just the character context, where they're in a pretty friendly place right now because she did get involved in the job, was a helpful part of it, and they feel that they've bonded a little bit because of it, without ever actually saying, hey, we feel better now. Because imagine this was a CW now. They'd be like, hey, ever since last episode when we helped each other and I became part of your world, I understand you better. They'd spell it all out. They'd say it all.
Oh, they so would.
Here, no, they're just in a better place, and they're communicating better.
Yeah.
Continuity.
You're making me annoyed at CW shows again. Do you know what? Remind me after we're finished. There was something on the last episode of Flash that I saw a headline about after we've done the recording that I'm like, wait, what? And I want to get your opinion on it.
Okay.
I'll forget otherwise.
So it's a simple little thing, but it's just that where the characters are is informing how they're being written in the scenes. What happened last episode is informing how they're writing the characters, addressing each other in this episode, and that is wonderful. And all shows should do that. Anyway, they should
definitely be aired in order when they do that.
Yes, well, or at all.
That helps too.
Yeah, so they're telling this mustache story where they were making fun of this general or lieutenant who had this big mustache, and Tracy shaved it off and wore it when the shit they came to like berate them the next day. So they're telling this funny story, and it's just, it is what it is. And this is when the bad guys kind of attack. I say attack, it's a warning shot. It's just, a detonated, like just close enough to give them a jolt. And we find out the bad guy is Lieutenant Womack. And there's a funny line here from Wash where he says, "Police procedures changed since I was little," after he makes his first demands. And they go to check the crate in the body. After this guy's like, "Hey, we need this crate, the cargo you've taken today, it's stolen goods, blah, blah, blah." They go and check the crate for something, assuming there must be something else in there that he wants. And this is why it's fishy. And they can't find anything, so then they go, "Hey," and because there was a line earlier on when they were first seeing the body where Simon offered an autopsy, and Kaylee looked kind of like, you want to cut him open, kind of like disgusted at him. And it's kind of playing the idea that she's kind of mad at him. This is kind of adding to it because it seems like he's insensitive in the moment, even though it makes sense because he's the doctor.
I mean, I think it's a little strange because there wasn't anything suspicious at that point about his death. It was he died, and this was his last request was for him to get him home.
Oh, true. But I mean, if I remember right, it was phrased like, "Oh, if you want, I could give him an autopsy to check out." Like, it wasn't like phrased like, "Oh, let me do an autopsy." It wasn't like he was rubbing his hands going,
"Sure,
autopsy. Yeah. I've not had an autopsy in a while. I'm looking forward to this."
Do one of those.
It's my favourite. You don't live till you've cut into a man's bill. So, so Mal's like, "Oh, hey, okay, time for the autopsy then." And Jane's got a fun little moment because Jane's sort of sitting in the corner of the room in the med bay, and they're saying, "Okay, maybe there's something inside there." And Mal's like, "Oh, that's that's an old school thing. It's disgusting and disrespectful, but it's an old school tactic is to hide something in a dead body to get it past customs and whatnot." And Jane just goes, "Do you think it's gold?" And they give him this look, they fire him this look, and he says, and this delivery just, I love this. He goes, "I got respect. I'm just saying, gold." But my favorite part of it is that he points at him when he says gold. He's like, "I'm just saying, gold."
It's got a point.
I just love it. But then, of course, Tracy wakes up, throwing all this to the wind, and he's screaming. He basically jumps at Simon. And they have to pull him off, and he realizes where he is, and he's like, "I'm naked," yada yada yada. And
his plan is working.
Yeah. And another little beat that I liked here actually is that Simon says that he's in cardiac arrest according to my equipment, and Mal's delivery of, "Tracy, are you having a heart attack?" I kind of enjoyed. Yeah. And Kaylee walks in, and we have this stare between Tracy and Kaylee, a moment of attraction.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm not too big on this plot.
I didn't think you would be. I'm not particularly huge on it either. I think I respect the fact that it never actually did the love triangle. It never actually wanted to do those beats. It just wanted to essentially try and make you care for him because Kaylee cares for him a little bit.
Yeah, the problem is because we spent the early part of the episode kind of getting Simon out of the way, so to speak, for this. It really feels like love triangle beats, even without them actually playing those beats. It
feels a little bit hollow that Kaylee's just like attached to someone else immediately after having a little fight with Simon.
Yeah.
So, no, I'll concede that point. And I did say it was a weaker episode in the context of the season.
It is, yeah.
I still like it quite a bit.
Me too.
So he explains his whole thing. He was smuggling organs. These people are after him because he got a new buyer who was offering more money. He's trying to get money for his family. And he explains all this. And it's like, okay, what are we going to do? And Wash, even though Wash has like no plot in this episode, he's just there to react to things. He is literally the one-liner. he has a third scene stealing moment in this. When they go to the bridge with Tracy, when he turns around and sees him, he starts screaming as if he's in a horror movie and asking why the dead man's on the bridge. He's walking around. I can't do it justice. I can't do Alan Tudyk screaming.
Don't even try.
But it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
And also, don't try for the sake of my ears.
No, I'm just pointing out this is the third time this episode that I have laughed out loud because of Alan Tudyk, because of his delivery of a line.
He is the funniest man on the show. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great writing, a lot of great delivery from all of them, but Tudyk has a comic timing above everyone else.
You know, out of the 9 main cast members, I don't think there's any that don't make me laugh. There's definitely ones that make me laugh more often.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. They all have the ability to pull off the comedy, and they're all written well enough to have that. But I think Tudyk's delivery of things, like every single line in this episode, is just a cut above.
I feel like Tudyk, along with I'll just switch the character names to make this easy without having to remember everyone. I think Wash, Mal, and Jane are your A tier comedy. Yep. And then I think mid tier you throw in Book, Inara, and maybe Kaylee, and then you sort of low end you got Simon, River, and
Zoe.
Who have I missed? Zoe, yeah. No, Zoe's mid tier. Zoe has some great deadpan. Sorry?
I'd swap Zoe with Kaylee.
You'd put Zoe in the bottom and put Kaylee in the mid?
No, Zoe in the mid and Kaylee in the bottom.
Well, I just said Zoe's in the mid tier.
But you didn't bump down Kaylee.
You want to bump down Kaylee, okay.
Yeah, I feel like she's very likable. You know, that's kind of like her whole shtick. I think she's rarely funny.
Okay. All right. She has some good moments. But I'll concede to that. So that's equally 3 in each tier, which is nice for the sake of this. But there you go. I don't know why we spent time doing that, but we were talking about it.
Here we are.
So they keep firing at them, and Wash goes down. I did like the kind of the action stuff here of them like going out to this snowy planet and like ducking and diving in the mountains. Obviously, as good as the effects can be in 2002 TV CG, but not as horrible as you might have thought. Though I don't think.
Not... All I'm gonna say is you compare this to like the first Power Rangers movie. You go, yeah, sure, this is fine.
1995 Power Rangers, sure, yes.
Yeah, no, but what I mean, yes, this has like an extra, 6-7 years on that, but that still had a significantly higher budget overall.
Yeah, but I'll also put it this way though, comparing it once again to the CW shows, if you compare this to some of the stuff we see in Flash on a regular basis, this comes out on top still.
I mean, in the last episode that we watched of Flash, this beats that opening.
It's not even close. Of course, it beats that opening.
Yeah,
that opening of that Flash episode was monstrously bad.
It was like those episodes have moments where the CG is better than this. Don't get me wrong. Like it's perfectly. It's never great CG, but there are points where it's like, yeah, this is perfectly good and absolutely acceptable.
The point I am making though is that the CG we're seeing in these episodes of Firefly is still sometimes better than what we regularly see in modern TV shows.
It is.
And it's been 17 years.
I have a question here, which you may just throw out the window. But do you think the fact that it is rendered in SD to that level helps, as opposed to having to render it in the full high definition stuff that they do now? It's the flaws are more apparent now. Because even on the Blu-ray where everything was upscaled and retouched, the effects were not redone.
No, the effects are still in SD. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a hard question to answer because does the lower quality actually help it?
Does it like hide some of the artifacts and make it just it feels more real because you're not seeing the imperfections as much.
So what you're saying here, bizarrely, is that the modern shows may actually look better if it just switches to SD for the effect shots.
I'm just saying that fight between Ralph and Ramsey in the Flash I would have preferred to watch that in 240p.
It's probably pros and cons. There's probably some side effect benefits from it being an SD, but but even if this was rendered at HD at the quality it is, I still think it would beat like some of the stuff we see on a regular basis on CW.
Probably. I just wondering if it was a factor.
It's an interesting question.
Like I said, you were free to just tell me I'm wrong and throw it out the window if that was what you thought. It just popped into my head.
Where was that anyway? So
I don't know. Check your notes.
Yes. So yeah, in this maneuver, they end up hiding underneath some mountain stuff, and the bad guys start dropping EMP blast things, which are very dangerous because if it actually hits the ship, then they'll be fried and just can't get out. They'll have to physically climb out of the mountain, which will most likely kill them because none of them are trained climbers, probably.
Might be. Wouldn't put it past him.
So this becomes very serious. During all this, like. Tracy's with Kaylee and they're kind of bonding a little bit.
Hitting it off.
Yeah. So basically, but he comes back out when we get to the point where Book starts kind of basically just logically explaining their situation where we can't be trapped down here. If we do, we're all dead. And there was a small hint before they got to the planet actually that he was kind of noticing that's weird. There's like a law outpost like so many clicks away. They should have called in for backup, but they haven't. Which basically, and we already kind of suspect because of the way the guy threatened to burn someone alive that he's probably corrupt and working off Book.
Do you know what I will say though? Is I think we're saying that because we know, right? I think the first time you see this, you know enough about the Alliance and such that you go, yeah, these guys are shitheads. Maybe they are just that vicious and ruthless.
Sure. Oh yeah, the first part, yeah. But I think as soon as Book says that, though, you're like, okay, they're working.
Oh, yeah, I know. Once he says that, but in the not quite torture scene.
Yeah. So Book says no, we have to sort of like let them board the ship and deal with them sort of after that part. Deal with them then. And Tracy hears this, doesn't like it, grabs a gun and holds them up. And I actually noted down here the moment where, like, you realize he's a lost cause, and in the context of the episode, and that we can't root for him anymore, is the moment he starts threatening Book. We can't sympathize with him because Book is the most kind, like, level-headed person on the ship. Who
it's kind of his thing.
Yeah. Because not only does he point a gun at him and says he'll shoot him, like he starts, calling him names and saying you got to listen to this Babel thumper, and he really starts letting him have it. And for all the shit that Mal's kind of like joked his way, kind of throughout the show, especially back at the start, it kind of feels like now you're threatening Book. Like, no, they're not going to stand for this. And ultimately, he ends up trying to shoot Wash, which is the point that Zoe shoots him, and Zoe is like, no, you're not shooting my husband. Like, no, you're threatening everyone in the ship, and specifically my husband in this case. But she tries to put him down. She shoots him. Not a kill shot, but puts him down.
Yeah,
because
definitely. And the stuff with Book works really well because he's to Mal's like, why would you let this this godly man on your ship? Because obviously he knew Mal fairly well, and we know he wasn't big on religion. That was a whole thing at the start of the show.
Well, he was in the war.
No, he was, yeah, but he obviously got jaded. He obviously got jaded during the war because Tracy knows what he's like.
No, it's the end of the war because we literally see the war end. It's because we see him kiss the cross in the first episode, and then the war ends. So it's the end of the war that does it.
Oh, sure, yeah. But what I meant is Tracy's obviously around during this, and kind of presumably soon after, when they're going back home, and kind of knows what Mal's like. And even when Mal was being standoffish with Book, it never felt insulting.
Yeah. This actually crosses a line. He actually grabs Kaylee, who doesn't realize that he's not to be trusted. And again, if you for some reason weren't feeling like he has to be dealt with, the second he tries to harm Kaylee, and they've used this, the show's used this tactic before. The second someone tries to harm Kaylee, it's like no. That's the tactic on Buffy. Like, if you want to make someone hate your villain on Buffy, do you know what you do? You have them go after Willow. Because the second that Willow might be hurt, you hate the bastard who did it.
Yeah. I think there's this is probably where some of the argument in Whedon, not as feminist as he appears, comes from. In that it's the damsel in distress.
I mean, you can make the argument, but I think it's the specific damsel, I suppose, is the important part here, because
I agree. They tend to be the pure, good-hearted people.
Yeah, because I mean, this show has Zoe. Buffy obviously has Buffy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm just saying, I think this is probably where some of that perception comes from. Is like you say, this is what, episode 12, and this is at least the third or fourth time that it's Kaylee been the damsel in distress, exactly like this.
Okay, I mean, I don't know if I thought, because the main thing I'm thinking of was back in the first episode when she got shot. I don't know if I actually count being shot as a damsel in distress.
Sure.
She's in distress. She's been shot, but I don't know if I guess count that in the same way. Whereas here it works because obviously she was kind of like getting friendly with him. As much as I didn't necessarily like that part of the plot, like it's what makes it feel particularly cruel that he grabs her. Sure. And yeah, so there's a bit of a standoff, and they kind of come in from like three sides. Again, it's the obvious crew who are doing it. It's Jane, Zoe, and Mal, the fighters who are kind of like dealing with the situation. They do shoot him again. They have to, and when he says that you murdered me, Mal says you murdered yourself. I just carried the bullet for a while. Which actually referenced back to their flashback, because there was a whole thing about there being a bullet out there. Like, someone already is walking around knowing not knowing they're going to be your killer, but they are out there. Yeah. So the bad guy's bored, and Book just stands there in front of them and basically tells them everything. Yeah, calls them out on everything, and they back away. But of course, not without one last laugh, where he looks up at Jane, who's like sort of got the point right by the cargo door, looking down at him with his shotgun, and he looks up and goes, "That hat makes you look an idiot."
Yeah, but again, this is another example of Book knowing how these things are supposed to work.
Oh yeah, this is another example of him clearly knowing how everything operates. Yeah, the procedures, how everything operates. He's clearly being involved with the Alliance and the law enforcement side of it specifically at some point. Like, yeah, it's another hint in the show.
Too specifically of, you should have called backup at this point. You didn't. You're clearly rogue.
Yeah. So Tracy dies. He finishes the saying we heard earlier about if you can't run, crawl. If you can't crawl, then you find someone else to carry you. Well, I should be more specific. It's actually Zoe who finishes it because he can't quite get it out. He's dying as he's saying it. And it still plays as a sad moment, and I think the reason why it works is because they know he's kind of this tragic life who's just kind of
it was desperation that's kind of put to this.
So there's a whole sadness to it, and he asks before he dies, will you make sure I get home? And they say yeah. So we have everyone assembling, piano music's playing. They're getting off the ship, and his family are around, and they bury him, and we see them all. Simon and Kaylee hold hands. Like, it kind of brings everyone back together in a really somber way. And as I mentioned last time, they had just found out they were cancelled before they shot this scene. So, all that sadness is real.
Yeah,
they are doing that, and it replays the recording of him asking for help over this as well. So no, I mean, it's a very solid put together episode in its craft, and I think it's still pretty enjoyable overall, but it is one of the weaker ones of the season for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think it has some flaws, like the not quite love triangle plot that kind of just feels like it's there to have something, and just like I said at the start, it feels a little meandering. The villains feel a little thin.
Yeah, especially since like they are just talked away, and even though I like that in concept, I like the idea of Book just sort of like talking them down. I'm going to assume that they were going to pop back up again if the show kept going. That this was just an introduction to this guy.
Maybe, yeah.
I feel like we were going to see him again, and this is why it felt like such a non.
Because he might have a personal vendetta now.
Yeah. In the same way that Badger showed up. Or Whistler. Yeah. No, Badger.
It's Badger.
Whistler was an angel. Sorry, I'm just mixing my Whedon names. Because Badger showed up again. Obviously, Saffron, Bridget, Yolanda showed up again last episode. I feel like this is maybe setting up another recurring character. We just never got to the recurring part because the show was over. But yeah, that is The Message.
Cool.
It's funny, actually.
Just a couple left.
Just a couple left. 2 more left, and then the movie. And it's funny, actually, the idea of like getting a message through and like getting a message to someone is actually a big theme of the movie. So I don't really have a point to make. It's just an observation I'm making as I'm thinking about it.
I that feels like a less intentional thing.
Yeah, no.
Oh, look at this.
Yeah, I don't think it's some. Especially since it's not like he knew he was going to do a movie when he.
No, but even like having the movie and go, oh, that was a good theme. Let's do more of that specifically. I don't think he had that episode in, this episode in mind when he was doing that. Just just a coincidence.
Yeah. So there you go. That is the message. So let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments. You can like and subscribe. You can ding the bell on YouTube. Make sure you get the notifications. If you want to support the channel and everything we do here, you can, of course, rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts. That helps us out a lot. You can also help us on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month. And you get bonuses, bonus episodes of movie podcasts we do, outtakes and things like that. At the $5 tier, you get certain stuff early, much like these Firefly reviews. So go and have a look and see if you're interested in any of that stuff. I'll also take this time to thank our Patreon producers. I clicked the wrong thing there, forgive me. It didn't affect the recording, but it affected Connor.
Yeah, everything just went black on my screen. I was like, what the hell did I do?
So thank you to David Short, Alison M. Fordice. Fordyce. She corrected me the pronunciation. I've been getting it right most of the last few times, but I messed up there. Cindy Palacios, Tyler Hess, and Talking Superman. Those are our Patreon producers for the month of November. And it's actually the 1st of December as I record this, but you know what? That's fine. Someone got a freebie. So thank you to them. Also, thank you to our sponsor, particularly these Firefly reviews, Keith Beard. So thank you to him. He does that at the $10 tier. So that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys, but curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal.